I'd like to call to order the April 10th, 2012 regular meeting of the Boulder Valley School District Board of Education. Sandy, would you call the roll, please?
Albright. Belleville. Here. Benford. Here. Fuqua.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Smith. Here.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to remind all who have gathered here tonight that the vision of the Boulder Valley School District is to graduate students in the new century who have the knowledge, skills, and personal characteristics that will make this world a safer, more thoughtful, and more inclusive place in which to live. We'll begin with our first agenda item, the superintendent's report. Messenger.
Mr. President, members of the board, as is our tradition each month, we have some celebrating to do tonight. One of the student athletes we want to recognize was a winter champion in skiing, and so, but because of some conflict in schedules, we weren't able to do it during the winter season, but we will take advantage of that. And then in March, we had the opportunity to celebrate the excellence of some of our teaching staff at the Impact on Education celebration. So Fran Ryan will be joining me in a few minutes to recognize some of our exceptional teachers. And so at this time, I would like to invite Bob Billings, who is the athletic director for Nederland High School, to join me at the podium to assist me in introductions and recognition. So Bob, if you would.
President Reed, members of the board, thank you for accommodating us. We have an outstanding young woman who represented Nederland and our district quite well this past winter season in alpine and Nordic skiing, as well as our outstanding head coach, Whitney Taylor. So if we could get Bailey Kuchenmeister, our outstanding skier, and Coach Whitney Taylor to come up, they'll tell you a little bit about what she accomplished this year, which was plenty.
We're going to talk about Bailey? Yes. Hello, I'm Whitney Taylor. I'm the Nederland High School Alpine ski coach. Bailey here joined the Nederland Alpine and Nordic High School Panthers this year as a sophomore. She's been a competitive club-level ski racer for a long time, and this year is the 2011-2012 Colorado Ski Meister champion. And you might ask, what is a Ski Meister? A Ski Meister is an alpine and Nordic combined skier. So for Bailey in particular, that means that she did 2 winter sports, had 4 coaches to answer to, practiced 2 to 4 hours every day, had 2 all-day races a week, and at state she had 2 of those races in 1 day. For alpine ski racing, that's giant slalom and slalom racing, which is 2 roughly 1-minute runs combined. And then the Nordic skiing is skate and classic 5K races. So 2, even though it's skiing, 2 very different sports, and Bailey really excelled at both sports. In addition to being the state ski meister, she also received all-state in both alpine, giant slalom, and slalom. Huge accomplishment in itself. And Bailey also did an amazing job at balancing academics and athletics. She takes a lot of advanced classes while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. And in some additional qualities, Bailey's an amazing leader. She strives to do her best at everything she does, whether it's something she wants to do or something like squats or something unpleasant. Very strong work ethic. She received the Coach's Award at the end of the year for these qualities and more, and I'm sure you guys will see her here again next year, if not at the end of the season. So thank you.
Congratulations.
So Whitney, thank you for your coaching and advocacy.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you. Thanks a lot. Thanks. So those of us who attempt to ski have a great appreciation for what Bailey is able to do. I can't imagine. So anyway, what a nice accomplishment for her and for her coach. At this time, I'd like to ask Fran Ryan to join me at the podium. Fran, as you know, is the Chief Executive Officer for Impact on Education, our education foundation, and this is my first year to have a chance to work with the foundation and work with Fran. The community I left, we had created an education foundation, and as a strong voice for public schools and for our students and for those that we employ to work with our students. And so I was proud of what we accomplished in Helena, Montana, and I'm thrilled to say that the same kind of strong advocacy and support is coming from Impact on Education. So Fran, thank you for being here, and I know that you've got some folks you'd like to recognize. So.
And thank you, Dr. Messenger, for inviting me to present the recipients of our 2012 Impact Award. Impact on Education has been around for 29 years, but for the past 20 years, we have gone through a very competitive nomination process to identify 5 to 6 of our top stellar individuals in our school district. And it's the most honor that an individual like myself can have in acknowledging the quality of the teaching that we have here in Boulder Valley School District. And I think sometimes we get lost in the rhetoric, whether it's a legislative level or here on the dais where you're struggling every day to pull budgets together. And tonight I have a couple of the recipients here, but I wanted to say that the Impact Award really is a very prestigious, significant honor to bestow on these 5 teachers. And walking away from that evening, I had this sense of how lucky we are to have the diversity of the teaching styles. And that's another thing that gets lost sometimes when we're building budgets and acting very studious to doing the right thing. But teachers are all different, and that came out. I'd like to thank the board members who attended the event a couple of weeks ago. I'd like to thank Mr. Reed for bringing your daughter. It's always wonderful to have children there, so thank you for doing that. We had 5 recipients, and I'd like to just talk about 3 who were unable to be here tonight for various reasons. Cheryl McCarthy is a High Peaks Elementary School first grader, and without exception, everybody that we interviewed said she was kind, gentle, and loving, and without exception that she personalized every lesson plan for every day, for every week, and that was said by parents, so another thing to be proud of here in the school district. One parent reported, "She inspired my son and ignited his joy for learning. And when he came home, he'd just keep on working on the project just for fun, and he'd just ask to go to the library." So again, that inspiration, the passion for teaching. Ray Neiman with Bear Creek Elementary, he had a career in the technology world, went back, got a teaching certificate, and he is very systematically transforming how Bear Creek is using technology in the classroom and engaging students in their learning using the iPads. Clara Quinlan is a Peak-to-Peak charter school 9th grade teacher, and the words that came out in her nomination were carpe diem, which is just seize every moment in that classroom, and a very alive, passionate teacher that climbed Mount Kilimanjaro last year, and through that adventure brings that out in her students. So with that, I'd like to call up Virginia Schick and Justin Obertnoff from Platt, and Virginia's Boulder High. And Kevin, if you'd like to join us also. Kevin is the principal at Boulder High School. When I was sitting here asking the teachers, would they like to speak? And they said, oh, no. And that's the third thing I wanted to share. Teaching is a very humbling experience. And I present to you 2 of the recipients that really embody the passion for student learning. Justin's has a code name at Platt. It's Mr. O, And he's one of those teachers who the children love to have, and not because he does the break dancing and he's fun, but that he really inspires the children to recognize their potential. His style builds character, good work habits for the students, and he has a personal sense of responsibility that also lends itself to inspiring children to be that way. Virginia is an art teacher. She is a nationally board certified teacher also. She spends time mentoring teachers at Boulder High in that certificate. The halls at Boulder High are usually all alive with lots of artwork and lots of enthusiasm for Virginia's contribution to inspiring learning using art. And as someone who loves art myself, I'm always delighted that we're able to acknowledge art, and that Virginia is a treasure to the school district and is considered a treasure at Boulder High School. She, that evening, brought many of her old students that are out in the world designing fabric, and that brought much joy to the audience. So, school board members, not quite sure what the titles are these days, I'd like to present to you two of our teachers that represent the 5 recipients of this year's Impact Awards.
It certainly was a fun evening the night we celebrated the success of 5 excellent educators and nice ambassadors for those who work in our schools each and every day. So I appreciate both of them joining us, and Fran being here to help represent them this evening. Just a few other items I'd like to mention, and then I'll take my seat back with you. One of the things I'd mention, as you well know, we're in the final stretch of the legislative session. Things seem to be settling in around school funding. It appears that as we look towards next school year, the legislature is preparing to authorize funding to keep pace with our enrollment, which was an additional $57 million was added just recently and through the Joint Budget Committee. And so we're hopeful that that's sustained, does not recognize cost of living or inflation for districts, but certainly will position us better than where we may have thought we'd be at the beginning of the session. So we have a work session scheduled for, I believe, a week from tonight, where we'll go in more in depth around our budget projections based on what we're receiving from the Colorado Department of Education. But that's an important work. The other thing I would mention is that we've worked on a number of bills, and you get copied on a number of emails that we send back and forth and work with our lobbyists, and Briggs helps coordinate all that. The one bill I guess we've probably spent the most time on is the literacy bill. I would just acknowledge our delegation, both House members as members of the Senate, as reaching out to the Boulder Valley School District and asking for our input on several occasions. I've had the opportunity to go down and visit, including today, to visit with Senator Heath, Senator Schaefer, and others that are involved in the legislation. In the governor's office, we understand there are some complexities around this bill. Our goal is to help see this literacy bill through, but we also believe there are some needed amendments. I think most agree with that, so we're working hard on the Senate, with the Senate, to have those amendments incorporated. Then hopefully they will be satisfactory to the House when they make their way back. So anyway, a lot of folks have put in effort around this. The literacy legislation draws attention to the importance of literacy, as you know, for our children and their success in our schools. Part of what we're trying to be clear on is, as we increase those expectations, that we work to, if not this year, certainly in the future, of having adequate resources so that we can foster the kind of interventions, in especially the early years, preschool and the early years, that we're with the children to assure that they are at grade level by the time they make their way midway through the elementary school. So we know we're not there yet. We just talked about that in March. We're not where we want to be with that, but we're, as a district, going to continue to work on that and encourage legislators to support that, both in spirit as well as financially. And the last thing, shifting gears back to our district, I would just mention, as you know, our subcommittees have been busy at work around our contract. We identified in early February areas we would focus on in our subcommittee work before we bring it all back together. And I just want to acknowledge the many hours that members of our administrative team, members of the board, thank you, have invested in this, and also the leadership of the Boulder Valley Education Association. We've had good collaboration, thoughtful, creative approach to this work, and we knew it would take all of our creativity and effort to work through some really complex problems. So I think we're in a good place and look forward to our continued work. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is student communications, but the SAC committee is not here tonight. So we'll move right to public hearing and public participation. The board recognizes the value of public comment on issues related to the operation of schools. To ensure that our meeting is conducted in an orderly manner, we ask that persons who address the board confine your comments to matters that are germane to the business of the school district. Speakers on agenda items will be heard first, followed by those speaking to non-agenda items. Limit your presentation to 2 minutes. If we go over the first hour, public comment will continue at the end of the meeting. I think we'll make it through. Recognize that students often attend or view our meetings. Speakers' remarks, therefore, should be suitable for an audience that includes kindergarten through 12th grade students. The board president may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant statement that is unrelated to the business of the district or inappropriate for K-12 students. We have a lighting system on the podium. It will start with green when it's green and you get to the podium, you may start, and the 2 minutes will go. It will turn yellow at 30 seconds, and it'll turn red when your 2 minutes are up. We have a few speakers tonight, none on agenda items, all on non-agenda items. So we'll start with the non-agenda items, and I'll call 2 at a time. So we'll start with Joshua Eskin, followed by Kelly Mueller.
Mr. President, members of the board, I will get through my 2-minute statement, but I would also like to call your attention to the online petition that the students at New Vista have put together called New Vista Needs Mark Olofsson. And it's full of comments about Mark to the effect of that he's the best teacher I've ever had, the reason that I'm planning on going into science, and I will hopefully this will get sent to you. I think it's a really interesting read. This is about the renewal of the contract of Mark Olofsson, science teacher at New Vista High School. Most engineers of my generation will tell you that shop class is the experience that first sparked their interest in engineering and technology. Today, we accept that shop class is a relic, a victim of budget cuts and changing priorities. Apparently, Mark Olofsson didn't get that memo. Working out of an abandoned locker room, using donated materials and borrowed tools, Mark's after-school shop club dreamed up machines and built them by hands. These kids were getting hands-on experience and learning the fundamentals of engineering mechanics. Later, shop club transitioned into robotics club, and within a week of placing in the state competition, Mark had raised corporate donations that allowed the whole team to travel to regionals. Another skill that needs to be developed in our kids is critical thinking about science. These days, every citizen needs the ability to sort through competing scientific claims and recognize pseudoscience, as well as to understand limitations of scientific inquiry. How are you even going to start teaching that? Mark Olofsson developed a class that engages kids by tackling conspiracy theories and other areas of popular belief. It's called Controversy on the Cutting Edge. What a great way to treat the subject. Students who have taken this class know how to engage in a constructive debate. They are not intimidated to look up original sources and draw their own conclusions based on the quality of the evidence. Mark is clearly an innovative and inspiring teacher. His enthusiasm is infectious with the kids. You can see it whether he's cheering on the robotics team or offering late-night homework help. In his physics class, which I assure you is a rigorous college-level course, New Vista High School should be an ideal match for the kind of teacher who has the energy and talent to develop unique course content, classes that engage kids who are looking for more than what traditional schools offer. Under other circumstances, I would be up here praising the New Vista administration for providing a supportive environment for the kind of math and science teacher that, frankly, every high school in the country needs. For many of us parents, it's hard to see what might be lacking in either his teaching skills or his match to the school climate. Thank you for considering our perspective.
I'm also here to talk about Mark Olofsson and his dedication to the students at New Vista High School. My name is Callie Muller. I'm a senior at New Vista, and I recently joined the robotics team this year and got to travel with Mark and the rest of the robotics team to Arkansas. But I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. So we, the New Vista robotics team, believe that Mark Olofsson should have the option to have his contract renewed. He does an amazing job running robotics and shop club at New Vista and is a teacher that really gets people interested in science. In 2010 to 2011, Mark entered New Vista High School in the Best Robotics Competition, a six-week event that involved building a robot out of specific parts and constraints, marketing that robot, and presenting our progress of building the robot to a panel of judges. This was the first time our school has done any engineering or robotics-related competition. He spent 3 days of his summer attending a training to make this happen. Our first year, we ranked 6th place out of 12, which is good for our first time. This school year, we did remarkably better due to our past experiences and the devotion that Mark and the robotics team put forth. This was the first time that any team from New Vista has advanced to an interstate competition, and we had to come up with a way to travel to Arkansas. Mark managed to raise over $5,600 for our flights to and from Arkansas, and also many useful and well-needed tools that we continue to use in our shop. To call Mark merely a good teacher would be somewhat of an insult. Mark is a truly irreplaceable teacher, and he is what drives robotics and the science in general at New Vista. He dedicated an incredible amount of time, around 150 hours, staying after school to mentor for robotics. He even cooked pasta for dinner when we worked late, which was pretty often. He essentially spent 3 months of his life totally committed to robotics. The New Vista robotics team urges the Board of Education to consider giving Mark Olofsson the option to renew his contract. Thank you.
Brenna Skidmore.
Hello, I am a parent of 2 students at New Vista, and for the last 3 years, between chemistry, physics, astronomy, and robotics, I've been hearing about Mark Olofsson continuously, and he has both been a rigorous, passionate, and inspiring teacher to my children, and I don't think there's any doubt in my mind of his excellence in education. This raises 2 other issues to me as a parent that I wanted to bring to the board. One of which is a disappointment that other management issues of which we may not be aware couldn't have been dealt with by the administration without taking someone who seems to be so clearly an excellent educator out of the classroom. And I think that this has caused a lot of discord in the community. Secondly, I am concerned that this is a symptom that there is an underlying confusion and disagreement in the New Vista community between the students, the faculty, the staff, and the district about what the vision and the philosophy is of this alternative high school. I've gone to a number of SIT committee meetings and other school functions, and I feel like New Vista is being pushed into the same old mold and is somewhat losing its identity as an alternative school. And I am not well enough connected to this whole situation to understand it, but I'm getting very bad feelings about what the direction of New Vista is and whether it will continue to really differentiate itself from other high schools such as Boulder and Fairview. And if it's going to become a little Boulder and Fairview, it's really lost its point. So thank you.
Followed by River Doherty.
Hello, I'm Brenna Skidmore, and I am also to bring to the board's attention to Mark and our other teacher who is Cree. I am totally spacing on her last name right now. But they are both unable to renew their contracts, and I would also like to bring forth that Cree as well as Mark should be able to renew their contracts because they have both affected New Vista greatly. When I am a freshman, and when I took Mark's astronomy class for the first time, I was telling Mark after the class, I'm coming back next year, I'm going to be there. And once I heard this, I even promised him I'd take it next year and I'd do everything in my power. And when I found out that he might not be there, I felt awful because I hate breaking promises. And even promises I can't do anything about, it makes me feel, it makes me feel really bad when I can't live up to what I say because I'm trying to be the best person I can. And without being able to live up to my promise that I've made to Mark, I will not only feel as though I've let myself down, but I've let Mark down, and I've let New Vista down. I need the board to recognize that these teachers have greatly impacted me and New Vista, and I just can't do it without, I need them there. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Hey, I'm also here to talk about the contract renewal of Mark Olofsson. My name's River. I transferred into New Vista halfway through last year, and I'm now a sophomore. And since that point, halfway through last year, I've taken 4 of Mark's classes and got A+ in all of them. And ever since Mark's classes, I've science has always been my favorite subject, but I've always not been the best at it. But the way in which Mark teaches science, he actually makes you get involved. You don't learn it from a textbook or look it up on Google. You have to experiment, find out stuff that you want to know instead of stuff that you should know. And that way you're way more motivated to learn. And I can honestly say Mark's the best science teacher, if not general teacher, I've ever had in my life. And that's saying something because I've had some pretty cool teachers. But I've learned more about science and probably more about math in the past year and a half than I've learned prior throughout my whole school career. And that would definitely not be true if it wasn't for Mark. And I can't even imagine taking science classes at New Vista without Mark being there, because Mark is New Vista. He is the teacher that I think of when I think of why New Vista works and why New Vista alternative, why it's different and why it works better for some kids. Because I know at other schools, I went to Longmont High School in St. Vrain Valley, and I was flunking out of almost every class there while trying my hardest. And coming here, I've learned exponentially more while being comfortable with the teachers and asking them for help. And Mark's dedicated at least 5 hours of lunch help just for me, just out of his own lunchtime to help me and other students as well. So you don't really see that in a lot of teachers these days, and it doesn't make that much sense that his contract isn't being renewed. So I definitely think it should be considered that he should be able to choose if his contract is renewed for next year or not. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. The last speaker tonight is Jonah Eskin.
Hello, members of the board. I'd like to say again that Mark Olofsson is definitely one of the best teachers I've ever had, if not the best teacher I've ever had. He's engaging and fun to be around, and he also teaches you a lot about what you want to do and what is fun to do with science. He's really into independent learning. So with robotics, which I'm a member of, I've learned to construct my own designs for the robot and be independent and problem solve by myself, and he's been really good at helping you be able to help yourself with that. And robotics wasn't even part of our school before Mark Olofsson signed us up for it, and it's definitely been one of the most challenging and fun experiences of my life. And I'm really proud of the work that we have done this year. We ranked in the top fourth of an interstate level competition in robotics, which I'm really happy about. And these people here are definitely not the only people who agree with me that Mark is a teacher worth keeping at New Vista. There's over 100 people who have signed our petition online to keep Marco Lawson at our school, and there's only about 320 students at our school. And also, I'd like to point out the interesting and individualized classes that Mark offers especially. This year, again, with the controversy and the cutting edge class, I've taken that, and that has been very good at teaching me to be independent and finding good resources and how to be independent with my own learning so I can find the right information quickly. And he's also offering an engineering class next year, which I think would be really good to take, but I'm not sure how that would play out next year if his contract didn't get renewed, and I think that'd be a good opportunity for us to have. So thank you for listening to us.
Thank you, and thank you to all of our speakers tonight. A note is that the non-renewals will be on the board's agenda for 2 weeks from now on April 24th. So again, thank you for coming to speak to us tonight. Move to our next item, which is board communications. Leslie?
Okay, I'll start it off here. Thank you all for coming and speaking so eloquently about your teacher. Let's see, a few things. I decided to clean out my board stuff. I've started with a 2-drawer filing system, and then I went down to a box of files